Many people believe power in the Arctic is defined by who operates the most advanced aircraft. In reality, control is shaped much earlier and much more quietly. True power is determined far from the runway. It lies in who controls engines and upgrades, maintenance cycles, radar systems, and the export rules that keep aircraft operational over decades, not headlines. Welcome to Geoc Capitalist, where we examine the long-term decisions shaping the global balance of power. Today's analysis continues our Canada-Sweden Arctic series and explores a deeper question. Who truly controls the skies above the North? Canada and Sweden's $31 billion Arctic Pact is not simply about aircraft performance. It is about designing reliable systems that preserve national decision-making under difficult conditions. Seen this way, the agreement is not about confrontation or alliance politics. It is about building freedom of action into Arctic operations, calmly, deliberately, and without public declarations. If you value clear, independent analysis without noise or exaggeration, consider subscribing. Your support allows us to remain focused on substance over spectacle. Before we continue, please note, the visuals in this video are simulations and illustrative footage only. All materials are used for educational and analytical purposes. Now, let's continue. Most coverage of the Canada-Sweden agreement treats it as a conventional procurement story, framed around a fighter choice, a replacement program, or a headline budget figure. But that framing misses the strategic logic entirely. Modern air power is no longer defined by the aircraft alone, especially in the Arctic, where distance, climate, sparse infrastructure, and limited basing options matter more than raw speed or theoretical stealth advantages. In this environment, control steadily shifts away from pilots and platforms and towards systems. Maintenance chains that determine availability, sensor networks that determine awareness, data integration that determines coordination, and long-term sustainment structures that determine whether operations can be maintained under stress. The Canada-Sweden Pact is designed around that reality. It is not a purchase agreement in the traditional sense, but a framework for shared capability development and operational resilience. And in geopolitics, frameworks, not transactions, are where enduring leverage is built and quietly exercised. Every advanced aircraft operates within an invisible architecture built on 5 pillars: engines, software, maintenance, sensors, and supply chains, each of which determines how independently a country can operate its fleet. Control over one pillar offers flexibility, but control over all 5 determines whether air power is truly sovereign or conditionally dependent on external permissions. Historically, Canada has operated within deeply integrated North American systems that delivered reliability, scale, and interoperability, but also created single points of dependency that limited long-term optionality. The Arctic Pact with Sweden introduces something structurally different. Not replacement and not rupture, but alternatives that reduce reliance on any single supplier or approval pathway over time. This is where the agreement quietly shifts from aviation into strategy, because optionality itself becomes a form of power. And it is precisely here that Sweden's approach diverges from more traditional defense export models. Sweden does not design defense programs around maximizing export volume or creating dependent customer relationships. It designs them around survivability, interoperability, and shared operational responsibility. That mindset is shaped by geography and history, by operating under constant strategic constraint, and by assuming that systems must function even when external support is delayed, limited, or unavailable. In this model, partners are integrated into development, production, testing, and sustainment rather than treated as end users who simply receive finished platforms. Canada fits naturally into that philosophy, not as a buyer, but as a co-builder of northern capability shaped by similar environmental realities and operational demands. This cultural alignment is not symbolic or rhetorical. It directly influences how much control Canada retains over upgrades, sustainment decisions, and long-term fleet evolution. And yet, aircraft do not operate in isolation, which is where the Arctic equation expands beyond airframes entirely. Air control in the Arctic begins long before an aircraft takes off, because detection, not interception, is the foundation of northern security. Over-the-horizon radar systems, space-based sensors, maritime surveillance assets, and advanced data fusion determine who sees first, who understands the situation fastest, and who retains decision time in vast, low-density regions. Canada's Arctic posture increasingly depends on integrated sensing rather than continuous patrol, reflecting both geographic scale and operational efficiency. Sweden's systems are designed to operate within exactly this type of networked environment, optimized for data sharing, rapid queuing, and distributed awareness rather than centralized control. This transforms the pact into more than an air agreement. It becomes a node in a broader northern surveillance architecture stretching across allied Arctic and subarctic states. As a result, control shifts away from individual platforms and toward shared situational awareness, where coordination becomes the decisive advantage. This pact is often framed as a move away from the United States, but that interpretation is overly simplistic and strategically inaccurate. What Canada is actually doing is building resilience by reducing exposure to single supplier constraints and increasing its ability to sustain operations across a wider range of political and operational conditions. This is not about breaking alliances or rejecting interoperability. It is about ensuring continuity when priorities diverge or when external systems are stretched by competing demands. In modern geopolitics, alliances remain essential, but dependence without alternatives creates vulnerability rather than security. By broadening its industrial and operational options, Canada strengthens its position within existing partnerships rather than weakening them. This distinction matters more than ever in an era defined by supply chain stress, industrial bottlenecks, and overlapping security commitments, and its implications extend far beyond defense alone. By anchoring significant aerospace activity inside Canada, the pact strengthens domestic capability across manufacturing, maintenance, systems integration, testing, and specialized training, all of which underpin long-term operational autonomy. These are not short-term economic benefits tied to a single program cycle. They shape decades of institutional knowledge, workforce depth, and industrial confidence across multiple generations of platforms. Industrial participation here is not a secondary economic outcome, but a strategic feature deliberately embedded in the agreement's design, ensuring Canada retains hands-on control over sustainment, upgrades, and systems evolution. This approach also stabilizes supply chains, reduces exposure to foreign bottlenecks, and preserves critical skills during periods of global disruption. Countries that maintain, upgrade, and integrate their own systems retain greater freedom to make decisions quietly, consistently, and credibly over time. This strengthens Canada's ability to adapt to technological change, evolving threats, and shifting alliance dynamics without abrupt disruption. In strategic terms, industrial depth becomes operational insurance, reinforcing sovereignty not through rhetoric, but through capability that persists regardless of external pressures and political cycles. Control in the Arctic is not about dominance or outward projection. It is about reliability under pressure and continuity in some of the world's most unforgiving operating conditions. In an environment where extreme cold degrades equipment, vast distances stretch logistics, and limited infrastructure delays reinforcement, systems must function with minimal dependency and maximum predictability over long periods. Canada and Sweden are designing for that reality by prioritizing endurance, maintainability, cold weather resilience, and operational continuity rather than headline performance metrics optimized for temperate theaters. Arctic control also depends on the ability to operate from dispersed locations, sustain forces with limited support, and maintain readiness despite weather-driven disruptions. The objective is not to project power outward, but to secure decision-making space where national authorities retain control over timing, response, escalation, and sustainment. That is what real control looks like in the North. Not visibility, but assurance built into systems that keep functioning when conditions deteriorate. It is the ability to act when needed, sustain operations through disruption, integrate sensing and logistics seamlessly, and adapt without waiting for external approval, which is why this pact matters far beyond aircraft selection or procurement timelines. The Canada-Sweden Arctic Pact is not loud, dramatic, or confrontational, and it was never intended to be. It is strategic by design, focused on shaping long-term conditions rather than signaling intent in the short term. By embedding control into systems, partnerships, sustainment pathways, and domestic industrial capacity, Canada is building a future where freedom of action exists by default rather than by declaration. This approach reflects a mature understanding of power, one that prioritizes resilience, redundancy, and optionality over visibility or symbolic posturing. Over time, these choices reduce vulnerability to political pressure, supply chain disruptions, and shifting alliance priorities without undermining cooperation itself. In geopolitics, the most durable influence is rarely announced. It is constructed quietly within institutions, production lines, training pipelines, and maintenance ecosystems that endure political cycles, budget fluctuations, and external shocks. In the Arctic, where stability depends on preparation rather than reaction, that kind of power is already taking shape, measured not in statements or rhetoric, but in sustained capability, credible readiness, and long-term strategic confidence. And there you have it, Canada and Sweden's $31 billion Arctic Pact, and the deeper question it raises about who truly controls the skies above the North. If today's analysis helped bring clarity to how power is actually structured in the Arctic, I invite you to continue with the next video. And if you value clear, independent analysis of the forces shaping tomorrow's geopolitical map, consider subscribing to Geoc Capitalist. This channel exists to go beyond headlines and examine how power is built, maintained, and exercised over time, not through noise or spectacle, but through systems, decisions, and long-term strategy. Because in geopolitics, control isn't always visible, dramatic, or openly declared, but it is always decisive when it matters most. And in regions like the Arctic, where silence often conceals the most significant shifts, understanding those dynamics is the difference between reacting to events and anticipating them. I'll see you in the next one.